Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered what it actually means to act on pure instinct? And I don't mean just doing something impulsive, but existing in this state of perfect, unfiltered reaction to the world around you. Well, today we are diving into a really fascinating philosophical text that tries to answer exactly that. It sets up this core mystery about human behavior, and the ultimate answer, it lies in becoming what they call a Tao Achiever. Let's get right into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. First up, we'll uncover the mystery of Tao. Then, we'll look at the input and output, followed by the perfect mirror. After that, we'll examine going against the Tao, dig into the instinct loophole, and finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with the ultimate emptiness.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Mystery of Tao. Defining the Ultimate State.
The source text kicks things off with an unbelievably provocative question. Why does Jesus Christ weep, laugh, and get angry? Right? It's such a compelling way to ground this abstract Eastern philosophy in a figure the whole world recognizes. The author is basically asking, does a highly evolved divine being still experience and show raw emotions just like the rest of us? And according to this text, the answer is an absolute yes. Openly showing pure, unadulterated emotion, instead of just politely bottling it up, is literally what makes someone a Tao Achiever. It means you are reacting completely truthfully to the moment.
So, what exactly is Tao in this specific context? Interestingly enough, the text doesn't describe it as some kind of mystical, untouchable aura floating in the sky. Not at all. Instead, the author defines Tao as a spiritual, impartial, and highly sensitive, universal precision scientific reaction instrument. Think of it as this incredibly precise mechanism that governs the formation, existence, decay, and ultimate emptiness of all life. Therefore, a Tao Achiever is simply someone who operates purely on their intrinsic nature and instinct. They react exactly the way this universal instrument intended them to.
Moving right along to Section 2, the input and output, the mechanics of nature.
Think about the mechanical analogies the source uses here, because they're actually super helpful. It's all about basic cause and effect. A computer network gets a search term, right? And the output is search results. You hit the brakes on your car, the output is stopping. And obviously, if it doesn't, you've got way bigger problems than philosophy. You strike a bell, it makes a sound. It's just inevitable. Just as a bell logically has to ring when you strike it, a Tao Achiever must instinctively and immediately react to the stimuli in their environment. A bell that doesn't ring isn't being polite, it's just broken.
Now, map this exact same logic directly onto human interaction. If the input is someone walking up to you and saying, "I love you," the natural expected output for a Tao Achiever is to reflect that love. But if the input is a malicious personal attack or slander, the instinctive, completely natural output is pushback and self-protection. Failing to react, or reacting inversely, like forcing a fake, polite smile while someone is actively insulting you, is considered going against the Tao. Within this framework, doing that is treated as a literal malfunction of your human instrument.
All right, Section 3, the perfect mirror, reflecting reality.
This brings us to a brilliantly fascinating dual nature. On one hand, a Tao Achiever is compared to an innocent child, someone who has all of their emotions clearly written right on their face. They completely lack vanity, pretense, or any artificial societal standards. But simultaneously, they're described as a perfectly empty mirror. They just truthfully, completely reflect whatever is right in front of them with zero bias. If the scenery they're experiencing is angry, they reflect anger. If the scenery is joyful, they reflect joy. No filters. This connects super deeply to ancient philosophy. The text quotes Lao Tzu stating that a Tao Achiever must return to the state of a baby. True wisdom in this framework doesn't mean you've built up this massive mental database of clever strategies and social tactics. It actually means having a mind that is so profound and so incredibly empty that it leaves absolutely no trace of premeditated thought or suspicion. Basically, if someone loves you, you don't pause to analyze it or wonder if it's a trap, you just naturally, effortlessly reflect it.
Which leads us to Section 4, going against the Tao, the illusion of tolerance. Okay, so common societal belief often tells us that we should tolerate, yield to, and even respect someone who deceives us. It's that classic turn the other cheek mentality, right? But the text argues that doing this actually distorts reality. It makes the case that tolerating a deceiver really just encourages more deceit and ultimately harms both people involved because you are actively rewarding bad behavior. The author heavily critiques this modern habit of smiling when you actually want to cry, calling it a harmful detritus of culture that we use just to protect our own intellect and ego.
And the text goes even further, directly challenging some very established religious traditions. It takes the traditional Buddhist concepts of precepts, concentration, and wisdom and frames them as attachments that actually end up distorting your true intrinsic nature. The author takes this super bold philosophical stance that by trying to suppress your vibrant, natural life through strict rules and precepts, you're artificially moving yourself away from the Tao. According to this view, someone who has truly crossed the river of enlightenment has to discard those rigid structures entirely to live truthfully.
Okay, let's jump to Section 5, the instinct loophole, setting the boundaries.
Now I know exactly what you might be thinking. Doesn't this whole instinct-driven philosophy sound like a massive free pass to just be a jerk and do whatever you want? Well, the text provides a really strict boundary to prevent exactly that. True intrinsic nature only ever acts in natural cycles. For example, think of animals. Rams only mate in their specific season, right? Never out of turn. Contrast that with a distorted life structure, where someone aggressively imposes their will on others without any stimulus, commits malicious acts, and then tries to falsely claim, "Oh, it was just my instinct," as a convenient excuse. A true Tao achiever never unprovokedly imposes their will on anyone else.
Finally, we reach Section 6, the ultimate emptiness, forgetting the self.
This brings us to the ultimate and arguably the most interesting paradox of the Tao Achiever. Because they operate as a perfect mirror, they literally have no eternal enemies and no eternal friends. They are completely ethereal and holographic. It's wild to think about. They are totally immovable in their empty nature, yet instantaneously and constantly changing in their reflection. They seamlessly match the absolute chaos or the perfect clarity of the external world. They brilliantly reflect the myriad phenomena of the universe, but the one thing they never reflect is themselves.
And this quote beautifully summarizes the core philosophy we've been unpacking today. To achieve Tao, one must forget oneself and faithfully reflect the truth. So ultimate achievement in this framework isn't about building up some grand, complex intellectual identity to show off to the world. It means becoming completely, totally empty of self so that only the raw, unfiltered truth of the present moment remains. Which leaves us with one final, really provocative question to ponder. If a Tao achiever is purely a mirror, what do they see when they look at you? Are you showing them the unfiltered truth, or are you showing them pretense? Because remember, whatever you put out into the world, that perfectly empty mirror is going to reflect it right back at you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you with something fascinating to think about today.